Hi. In today's video, I'm going to discuss about this ETL development. As we all know, whenever we are working on application development, so there are some projects which will be of migration related stuff. Because migration projects where we migrate from old legacy systems to the new applications. That's what generally migration process is all about. So whenever we are working on the migration process, there are different stages of data which has to be transformed from legacy applications to the new application. So this is irrespective of the domain we are working on. Either we working on healthcare domain, we are working on banking, financial services, capital markets, all that. This extraction as well as the migration of data is one of the key and prominent element. In reference to that, ETL development is what generally plays a vital and important role. So wherein ETL in full form we call it as extract, transform, and load, right? So ETL development is what generally we do. When it comes to the role of a developer perspective, right? So because ETL development where whatever the code relating to the data, which will be mode based on mapping of requirements, because whenever being a business analyst, we are working on migration projects, mapping of requirements between the old systems to the new application, right? So this is where generally we do the mapping part. Requirements mapping is what we do. Means transforming from as is to be system. That's what generally the mapping process we do whenever we are working on gap analysis. Whenever we are mapping the requirements, this is to understand about the kind of code which is something essentially required here, where whatever the data mapping requirements was done, so that has to be for that the kind of essential code has to be written by the ETL developers. This is where generally ETL developer role come into picture. So if you can see here, this is where generally the sources of data you can see over here, right? So this is where generally the sources of data we can see over here, right? This is where generally sources of data. So these sources of data may be of any of the servers, because servers can be of anything. Either it can be old Sybase servers, or it can be an Oracle server, right? So database I'm talking about, right? So it can be SQL server, all that. These are the databases we used in that server. Where sources of data will be stored initially here, it will be of any other formats, because different formats of files we can see. Mainly XML format files we can see here. At the same time, there will be some JSON format files, all that, right? So this is where generally the sources of data will be there in this. So whenever we have taken the sources of data, from there generally this ETL process will be initiated. So ETL development process has to be initiated for that, because there is this data, whatever the sources of data we have taken, this data will be in the larger percentage, right? So this data is not something small in terms of understanding, right? So sources of data is something very large in reality. The data will be very large. So whenever the large amount of data we have taken, so especially we have to use big data tools, big data tools, something like Hadoop and all, everything is what we use. This is where generally Hadoop comes into picture, where we use this big data as all that. This is all something which we normally use. At the same time, we use structured query language, because whatever the queries we want to write for any of the project, whatever we are writing, we need to write some queries, because in coming days, we need to extract some information from the system. Means if you want to edit the data, right? If you want to insert the data, right? So if you want to copy, if you want to delete, right? So if you want to have this data, all that, this is where generally SQL come into picture. This is where generally the SQL will also be involved apart from this Hadoop, etc., all that. From there, through this ETL process, it will be connecting to the data warehouses because where large scale of data, large amount of data is being stored in the data warehouses, which consists of multiple data warehousing tools will be used here. Wherein followed by this, it will be segregated into different data marts over here. So wherein to provide report generations and all, we use different BI analytical tools. So business intelligence tools can be used, or else data visualization tools, something like Power BI, Tableau. So all these things are we are using nowadays to extract the information because the user extracts whatever the data reports and all everything from this. This is where generally this business intelligence and all everything come into picture. So this is how generally whenever we do this data migration or data extraction as well as transforming the data from as is systems to the new system in reference to the mapping of requirements identified by the identified by the business analyst. These are the different steps which normally happens. So whenever we are working on any migration projects, all that. So this is all about this video. I hope this video has given you a clear understanding over ETL development, all that, because it is mainly useful for the people who are working on migration projects, especially the people who are in the role of business analyst, majorly, because business analyst has to know, because they are the one who will be mapping the requirements from as is to do be. So mapping of requirements and all everything will be done by them. At the same time, not only that, even ETL developers will also be involved in doing all that because they have to write the code for the mapping of requirement which was done so far. So this is all about this video. If you have any questions, if you have any queries in regard to that, please reach out to the contact details which will be posted in below to this video. Thank you.